Brilliant. Christoffel Sneijders, welcome to the lockdown sessions.
Brad, it's amazing, like always seeing you again, and your energy is so vibrant and your smile is so vibrant. And what I love from you, and that's why I'm also really honored to be here, is your real passion when you work with people and other kind of things. So there's nothing not real about you, and that's so beautiful.
I think we're going to end the podcast there. Christoffel Sneijders. Thank you very much. So look, welcome, because actually we have known each other for 8-9 years, actually.
Yes.
In the world of training, and you deliver and bring passion and performance to and in people as an executive coach, as a therapist, as a professor at the business school in Madrid, more recently as an author. And the reason why you're here today actually is to shine a bit of a light on some of these philosophies and theories you've been working with and playing with and published in a book. So we'll put a little link in the podcast as well. Nothing hurts, like a little bit of advertising. But you're here today to really talk about these concepts that you've observed and seen, and really how maybe shifting our mindsets and having a little bit of a shift in how we look at the world can really help people move forward, this idea of passion and performance in people. So the stage is yours to some degree, and what I'd love to do as a starting point is to kind of say, look, you talk about the three brains.
Yes.
And before you tell us about the model, what brought you to the concept and the construct of the fact that we've got three brains? Because my biology taught me we only have one.
Yes, I posted in LinkedIn, and one of my friends from water polo in the old days says, wow, biology is wrong. I always learned we had only one.
Right. I mean, I know there's different parts to it, but your philosophy is actually access the three brains and the world looks different. So tell us about how you came across it.
How I came across it, now, just like you, the last 20, 30 years I've been working with people. Salespeople, managers, leaders, and they all have a wish to go from here to here. And I don't know how's your experience. We did training, coaching. People changed after 1 or 2 or 3 years. You saw them back and they said, yeah, I still remember that. I still remember that. There was only maybe 1/10 or less of the whole thing we did.
Less.
And 90% was somewhere lost. And although they were still happy, it always felt for me like almost a cheater. Because I thought, what are we actually doing? We are the professionals, and if your return on investment is 10%, it's not so good. So when I hit somewhere therapy, when I went to Australia, I saw people with addictions, sexual abuse, and all kind of horrible things of PTSD. And I became aware that we stuck what we call in our subconscious, all those issues. And we know the subconscious. That's what we teach everybody, the iceberg theory. 10% conscious, 90% subconscious. And the subconscious is not tangible, it's a black box. Mm-hmm. And I once studied engineering, and I thought, a black box in this age, it doesn't make sense. So in all the things I followed in studies, I came aware with a heart brain. Professor Amour writes about it, 100,000 brain cells. I came here with another book of Gershon, who says we have a gut brain, what's now so extremely popular. And there's 500 million brain cells. It's something like the size of a cat or your dog. Wow. And then I came across of the polyvagal theory, and it explains that our nerve system, our automatic nerve system, is different. Not 2 nerves, actually there are 3. And I went with a trauma course with Peter Levine and Robert Dilts NLP, and I came aware actually there is a link. And Peter Levine describes a research in the 40s of a Russian American, and he describes everything that's evolved is coming from the gut. When we are still in mama's womb, we have this size. Do you know where we start with developing? What's the first thing that develops in us? It is our gut.
Right.
So when we are 1 to 3 weeks, almost everything in the womb is the same. If we, pigs, fish, we're all little gut brains. And we developed. Now, from that, I started to play with people. I thought, okay, let's test if the subconscious is really a heart and a gut. And I started playing with it, and it works. And I wrote a book about it because one of the clients I had, in one session, she came to me, sexual abuse, miscarriage or an abortion, alcohol, 2 bottles a day for already 10 years. And in one session, she made a massive shift because I played with the concept. And she really almost now hit my head, write about it, podcast about it, Chris, because this is too beautiful to get lost.
Yeah, right.
And now, that's the whole story where it came about. And what does it do now? Because that's more important. It makes massive change in people, because if you look at what we do and you look at all the tests we see, they're always a combination of behavior. If you look at MBTI or DISC, you have behaviors and they settle it down in, okay, you're more extrovert, more introvert, more dominant, more compliant, etc. But it's all from outside in. And we all try with behavior to change actually what we do. Now, I don't know how it's with you, but although I know I like to live healthy, sometimes I just forget and take one wine too much.
With me, it's chocolate.
Yeah, I stopped that one, but I know it. Otherwise, it would be a chocolate beer here. But if you really tap down what's there, and when people like to do weight loss or like to achieve something, you really tap in there, it makes a difference. Because a lot of people say, when you talk about the language, you say, in the coaching, yeah, Chris, it's an amazing idea what you do. And then you hear almost the yes, but I don't feel really safe telling this to my boss. And the moment they say, I don't feel safe, it means actually their gut brain, that's all about survival, says, oh, I've got an experience somewhere in the past that this is not a wise idea. Dear boss, I stop your actions right now. So after 2 hours of coaching or 1 hour of coaching, the client is totally happy, walks away with his action plan. I'm going to talk to my boss because that's what he wrote down. But somewhere he has a feeling, I don't feel safe, but I will overcome it. The next time you see me, you ask, how did it go? Yeah, I thought about it and I didn't do it because And you ask, but how come you made the decision? Yeah, I know I made the decision, but I thought about it again and I didn't feel safe. I said, but we discussed everything. You made all the steps for yourself, how you could do it, what were the benefits, pitfalls. So you really made a whole map of it. And when you become aware, the gut brain says no. And on that moment, actually, all the coaching, what we did is not useful anymore. So actually, then in the coaching, you would ask, I don't feel safe. So something happened that you don't feel safe. So I don't like to be a psychologist here. Well, what does it make that you don't say it doesn't make you feel safe? And a lot of times I don't know. I said, okay, just imagine the first time that you felt that way, that you didn't feel safe sharing something with somebody who's in authority of you. What would you say? And then 9 out of 10, somewhere an event comes back from 1 year ago, 20 years ago, from their childhood, from being on school, and bam, then you hit that part where somebody learned it's not safe. And if you can disconnect that, it happens. I still remember, as an example, I was working with an international HR director, really high positioned. And he said, in my team, I've got another executive and I don't feel close to him or working with him. I don't trust him. But that's okay. We did this and he became aware that when he moved schools, some of the new students in the class, and he was 10, looked like one of the guys in his executive boards. When he became aware of that, I see you smiling, his eyes went up like this. He said, I never thought of that. I said, me neither. And in 5 minutes later, it was solved. And now he's almost best mates with the executive.
Yeah, because of course we have to acknowledge that everything we experience plays a part in building the narrative that goes on inside our heads. And I sometimes look at people when I'm coaching. You remember my background as a psychologist.
Yes.
And when I look at the behaviors of people, you can often spot even the way they behave, how old they were when something happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? There was a guy in my first company that I worked with as an employee, right? And he reminded me of my maths teacher that bullied me. And every time I looked at him, I could just see, I won't give the guy's name, I could just see my maths teacher. I never wanted to speak to him. He never did anything to hurt me.
So and that's amazing. If you can pinpoint, like we do it in NLP and those kinds of things, hey, you're a psychiatrist. If you connect it with, hey, how much connection is there, how much safety there in your gut, and you really pinpoint it there, become aware it's there located, but on the words and the behavior, it just shows. And why I'm so passionate about it is in the business world it makes changes, and I shared that with you earlier. But now diversity is hot. I see in big companies, executive diversity manager, blah, blah, blah. So they make positions for it. And every time I ask a bloke, I said, would you like to have more female traits? Now, I think every bloke would say, no. I love my beer, I love my traits, get out of my face. If I ask a female leader, hey, would you like to have a little bit more masculine traits? Although they need it for their position, and say, no, actually not. I like to have also my female trait, but they have that, I know I should, but I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a conflict.
You see that internal struggle.
Yeah.
When I ask the same group of people, I say, hey guys, hey blokes, who likes to have a little bit more heart brain, more compassion for the team? Almost all the blokes, yeah, love to have that, Chris. When I ask the female leaders, hey, who likes to have a little more gut brain? Step up for your own position, draw the line, say, okay, to here, not further. All the females say, yes, I sign up. Where's the course?
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, I say exactly the same as masculine as feminine. By rephrasing it in heart and gut, they all have a buy-in. Now, if you talk about diversity, this is, in my opinion, a massive breakthrough. That's why I'm dyslexic. I wrote the book about it. Not because I like to write the book, because it was almost like walking the mountains in shorts.
Yeah. For sure.
But I thought, if it's there on paper, at least it is there. People can see it. And maybe that little drop creates an insight in us that we are all the same, only with different kind of traits. And that is not masculine or feminine, but actually it's our heart, our gut brain, how we are programmed. And that females have more heart makes sense, because they are designed to have 9 months somebody in their womb. And they have the beautiful gift of passing through life. We blokes don't have that part. We're just 5-minute parts of that procession, or maybe 10 minutes if you do a good job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah? So we, of course, there's biology difference, but we all have a heart brain, we all have a gut brain. And our education makes the difference. I don't know how it was you on school, but guys don't cry. Girls should be sweet. If you see toddlers and you see a pink shirt, it's a girl. When you see a blue shirt, it's a boy. We socialize our community to be more gut or more heart brain. Now, just imagine now you have a prime minister who's a toughie. And we're not about politics, but you could say he has a lot of a huge gut brain. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it also makes it harder to unite the whole UK. And it's not because he's a bad guy, because he's educated in that way. Probably he went to a private boys' school.
Yeah, for sure, he did.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but then you teach only boys, only gut. When you teach a lot of competition, you teach the gut brain.
Chris, you know, when I do therapy with people, I can lose count of female patients who have said to me that in their relationships, they wish that their partners could express emotion better. They wish their partners would cry, let things out. And we always joke about it because who was the person who taught that young that man, when he was a young boy, who taught him not to cry, and it was his mother.
Yes.
When he fell over, hey, big boys don't cry, just as you're saying. And maybe the world is ready. It's more than ready, I think, for an alternative way of looking. I'd be really interested in understanding, how do you get people to trust these different accessible brains so that I can tap into my heart brain more, or I can tap into my gut brain more, rather than when I'm under pressure, just believing that my default style where I go under pressure is my most natural response mechanism, which is I go to my gut. How do you get people to tap in so they can trust where they go?
Before trust, the trust is in the gut brain. I mean, if you look, say, trust is all about safety. What I almost always do, and is say, do a little play game. If you are willing, and I know you love to experiment, we will do the same with you, so people can see what we're doing. And then if they see this podcast or listen to this podcast, they can do the same. So what I will ask you to do, Brad, is to put 2 fingers on your between your eyebrows, and I will say close your eyes because you're more internally focused, and just say out loud, because out loud activates the ventral nerve. My name is Brad.
My name is Brad.
How does your head respond on that?
It acknowledges it as correct.
Okay, it makes sense because that's your name. Would you do the same fingers on your heart, please? And say again, my name is your name.
So my name is Brad.
How does your heart respond?
It feels comfortable.
Comfortable, okay. Makes sense because it's still your name and it's you. And please put your fingers 2 centimeters underneath your belly button. That's somewhere where your cheek point is, your gut brain center. And say the same, my name is Brad.
My name is Brad.
How does your gut respond?
With a kind of dynamic feeling.
Like, what you now can wear, it's your own name. You have 3 different responses. They're still good, but there. So let's do a game. Do you like to have a soccer player because I know you love sports, or do you like to have your prime minister to play this, or somebody else?
I think we'll go sports.
Okay, choose a soccer player, whatever you like. Which soccer players do you like to play?
My favourite player is one of your homegrown boys. It would be Denis Bergkamp.
Ah, yes. Oh, come on. Okay, so then what you're going to say is, my name is Denis Bergkamp, and put your 2 fingers there.
I'm quite liking this. My name is Denis Bergkamp.
How does your head respond?
You wish.
Yes. I would have exactly the same. You wish. You dream of this. Put your 2 fingers on your heart, please, and say the same.
My name is Denis Bergkamp.
How does your heart respond?
With a little bit of desire and longing.
Yes, longing. Yes, I can understand that also totally. Now, please, 2 fingers on your gut brain.
My name is Denis Bergkamp.
Okay. How does your gut brain respond?
It laughs a little bit at me.
Yes, so this is still positive. We see now also 3 different corrections in your thing. And now we're going to test something that when you are under stress or that you really don't like or negative about. So, could you imagine a person that you think, I could get stressed about him, or I don't like him?
I could whisper.
Okay.
I get a little bit worked up when I listen to the President of the United States.
Okay, I think you can join, a massive amount of people. So we're going to play the same and just say, my name is Donald T.
Okay, so my name is Donald T.
How does your head respond?
I almost want to joke and say, that's a lie.
Yes. Okay.
I want to be fact-checked on that one.
Yes, absolutely. Now we do it here. Now please with your heart.
My name is Donald T. Interestingly, my heart, even just saying it out loud, sunk a little bit.
Yeah, I can see your whole demeanor, your body poses, almost like your energy almost creeps away.
Right.
That's beautiful. And now please 2 fingers on your gut.
My name is Donald T. And then I feel a kind of bubbling sensation.
So now just imagine it, you're a leader and you're a coach, you have your own company. How are you going to make a decision? Knowing this, and you're in a stressful situation, say you're talking to a Donald T or something like that, how are you going to make, which brain are you going to trust now?
So I will go to my default position, which is to test my intuition, which would be more my heart brain. And then I would go away and reflect on it using my thinking brain, and probably not rely on my gut brain, which drives a lot of my behaviors that I don't always like, that bubbling feeling, is discomfort.
Yes, so but that's a beautiful process, because you do right about this, and you take a time out. If you're doing basketball, time out, okay, hey, I follow my heart there, I don't follow this one. And now say you don't have that time. He's putting you in stress. He says, I'd like to have an answer now, Brad. I'd like to have an answer now, Brad. What do you think you're going to follow?
My instinct response to that is, experience has taught me I can trust my heart. So even if in that moment my head's playing something, I would trust my heart in that moment, right or wrong. And I would I'm comfortable dealing with the consequences afterwards. So I would, under stress, I default to my heart.
Okay. So what we now do in these discussions, actually what you do with clients, you become aware what is their default process. You're not the average client, because you did how many years of self-development already, Brad? 20, 30 years of self-development. So you know actually how you work. Yeah, but most people who work with are less in tune with themselves. You're also a sportsman, and sportsmen are in tune, otherwise you cannot do sports.
Right.
You cannot do sports if you're not in tune with your body. Dennis Bergkamp didn't think, hey, where's the ball going? He just felt the ball like he was the ball.
Right. In fact, can we talk about the goal against Argentina in the 1998 World Cup in a little bit? Because it's my favorite goal of all time. But you're right. Actually, when you give that analogy, I think for me, that's where it really makes a lot more sense. Because that's about, and that answers the question, how do you tap in? It's about being so in tune with your body, if I'm understanding you right, that you can feel the approach. So you can take almost like a structured approach to decision making based on the scenario you're in, and learn to trust what you're tapping into. But it starts with understanding, how do I respond in each of those brains in any given moment?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely, because what you said when we were still offline, right? That you have a passion for what you do, and that you follow your passion. That's why also you started this company 10 years ago, right? To follow your passion. Actually, that's following your heart. And you said already, I take the consequences of that, because I love my dogs, I love to do this, I love to do that. And you take the consequences of that you're not a CEO with $2 billion. Yeah. And that's okay, because that's more gut-brain response. So you're totally in tune for already 10 years to follow your heart and all your decisions. So that's why you dare to follow it now. A lot of leaders are in their process and don't actually know, should I follow my heart or my gut? Because what brought me here is maybe following my gut, pushing some elbows, or maybe following my passion, because I'm the best in this.
Right.
Now I'm in a position where I should change and maybe should less rely on this. And I become confused because I said, it doesn't make sense to me, Chris, because what I did doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, right.
And then they come aware, actually, because that makes sense, because most leaders, salespeople, never did that self-development from what is actually happening inside me, what does my heart say, what does my gut say, and dare do to listen to them. Also based on education. What you said, we fall down on our knees, we got a bruise, mama says, don't cry, you have a cookie.
Yeah.
And so what do we do if we had a hard meeting? We go back to the fridge, take a coffee, take a sweet, and go back in the meeting as adults. Of course, that's how we programmed. And they never came aware, hey, maybe I should show compassion in that part. And so in that moment, you make people aware, how do you decide? And then you put that topic on the table. So now we did your own name, a name of a person you like, a person you don't like. How's your topic? And I say, my topic is ba ba ba. My topic is ba ba ba. My topic is ba ba ba. And they come aware, shit, my three brains have a different answer on the topic, Chris.
Right.
And they look at me, if I have the answers and I don't have the answer, what we see is that actually you have an internal conflict.
Yeah.
And then really on that moment, they say, okay, how do I deal with this? I said, actually, we need to align, which is true, because what could happen, you know it as a therapist, when trauma happens to people, and everybody has trauma, small trauma, big trauma. My cat died. I was not selected in the first team for soccer or water polo, whatever happens, or really serious trauma. Our compass gets a little magnet next to it, and that needle then turns around to the magnet. And we still believe this is our authentic self.
Yeah.
But actually, our authentic self is based on what happened in the past, that little boy, what you said, and we are not aware if we release that magnet, poof, it turns around. Yeah. And that's what you then do with them, from hey, that compass, that magnet next to you is next to your heart, your gut, or maybe your head, or maybe all three of them. Let's remove it and see what happens. And bam, it starts aligning.
I've always felt, even as a psychotherapist, I did it when I went through therapy myself, right? My therapist was a great guy, Dr. Charles Bentley. He was my archetype, big white beard. He looked like Father Christmas. And on my first session, he realized I had a challenge between head and heart. And he was like, if you want to try and out-intellectualize me, Brad, you'll lose, but we can always play. And he says to me at the end of my first session, listen, I want you to read Lord of the Rings, the Twin Towers. Read the book. We'll discuss it next week. So I come back the following week, and he says, come on, did you read the book? I said, yeah. I haven't read Tolkien for ages, so really enjoyed it. And he didn't want to discuss the book, Chris. He just said to me, so which character are you?
Yeah, beautiful archetyping.
Right? So I looked at him and I said, well, I really want to be Frodo, but I don't think I am. So I'm probably Sam, like the best loyal friend in the world, right, ever.
Yeah.
And he just shook his head at me. Try again? I said, okay, well, I'd really like to be Gandalf the Grey, but maybe I'm the Mad King. And he's like, no. Try again. Anyway, finally, after about 5 attempts, I realized what he was highlighting, that actually I was Gollum. I had this beautiful lightness in Schmiegel, who was this nice guy, happy-go-lucky, really pleasant. And then I had this really dark side that was the Gollum character. And what it made me realize, and why I share the story for everyone to know my own therapy, is that inside me is an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And that 8-year-old boy needs to come out. I need to not just flick him aside.
No. Really, it has come in, actually. And
correct. Yeah. And when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking what this model does is allows us all to embrace whatever moment there was that happened that triggered something in our life. Actually, if we embrace that, so it's who we are, not what we are, I think we can then listen to those answers so much more objectively and probably move quite quickly. You must see quite fast shifts there.
Absolutely. What you say is beautifully said, because when you look at trauma, what most people do, the same as pain, we like to get it out.
Right.
So we like to reject that pain. And the only way to say I have a pencil in my hand, to let the pencil drop is to hold it first. If I reject my pencil and put it on the table, I can never let it go, because it's not mine.
Yeah. So
we have to adopt what's in us, that boy of 8-year-olds, and mine is 5-year-old. And if we don't hold it first and say, hey, I love you and you're great, and you're deserved there, then we cannot let it go. But we don't let it go, actually becomes us on that moment. And then you see changes, what I said in the beginning with that lady. And if you read my book, not yet read, you see that
I'm expecting a signed copy, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one here. So this one I will sign and send it to you, or when I'm to you. Was that lady says, after my first session, it was the first time I could laugh in a million years. It was the first time in a million years I could say to myself, I love me. She could not say it to herself. And when I saw that she really best write the book or do something else with it, it made me aware that this concept has gold in it to make people embrace who we are and get that magnet out of the way, or just put it in the center of the compass so it can go all the ways around. And it makes lives more beautiful. And it's not only about therapy, but as a coach, for me, I don't believe in coaching, therapy, mentoring. I believe we have to get to a solution.
Right.
And if it's now have a walk in the forest, or really now get some stuff done, or just add some skills in knowledge, it doesn't matter to me. For me, those lines are really blurring. But if you work with people in that way, you can make massive changes and really let them align to themselves, and whatever happens. And in the business world, it's amazing. In the personal world, it's amazing. And if you look, say, in the virtual world, where connections is harder, and from Black Lives Matter and diversity in companies, it's really time to integrate those three brains. Because in my personal opinion, too long we have been dominated by gut brain competition. I win, you lose.
Right.
And if you teach everybody, you win, you lose, you create a gut brain society. Yeah? What does it matter if you were the best in class? I had luck with my parents. Eh? We have a scaling stance from 1 to 10 in Holland on school, but if a 6, you pass. My dad always says, I don't care what you get as long as you pass. So if you have a 6 or a 10, you're good enough. Only in history he had an issue because he loves history. History should have an 8 or higher, otherwise it was not his son, but okay.
Good to benchmark quality. It's good to benchmark quality.
But it actually makes sense. Because if you have a 6 and pass, or a 10 and pass, what does it matter if you win a soccer game with 1-0? If Ajax would have done to Tottenham Hotspur, just in the last minute had a win, and would have won the Champions League from Liverpool with a dirty game like what is it? Juventus did 20 years ago with Ajax when they were on EPO. Who cares? You win.
You have to let that one go now, though, Chris.
No, I know it's okay. It doesn't matter if you win, but now we believe we have to win massively or great. It doesn't matter. Just imagine, in companies, you don't have to win or lose. Your whole company is there. Competing, the competitor doesn't make sense because you put energy in competing. Attributing value to your customers, to the people you work with, embracing them, creates a different kind of energy. Because you're placed in the world.
Yeah, and you're right, because, I do a lot of work with high-tech companies, and specifically those who work in the world of open source rather than closed source. Yeah. And of course, the beauty of open source is that everybody has a say. The open source framework and the open management framework it's all about collaboration.
Yes.
So you've got tech guys living all over the world, and they're writing code. And rather than trying to hold their code and sell it, they put it out there into the community, and they say, hey guys, give me some feedback, build on the code.
Yeah.
And it goes downstream, and it comes upstream, and it just gets better and better. And it's not about, I wrote it first.
No.
It's, here's the code, I give it to everyone, please make it better. Yeah. And what you're describing for me, actually, if we move, not so much about moving away from competition, for me, it's about moving closer to a form of collaboration, which is your link to diversity and inclusion, which is on everybody's lips, D&I these days, right? It's a critical piece. And maybe it helps us be a little less sensitive to, identifying with things. Yeah. That kind of, I follow a Buddhist mantra of non-identification. Yeah. And that means I don't get too attached to anything or anyone or any problem. So when something bad happens, I don't freak out.
Yeah.
I don't identify. I lean in and I lean out. And when I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is this model allows people to like lean in, but not collapse themselves in it, and then lean back and move forward. And for me, that's the direct link to coaching, right? It's about momentum to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely, it's beautifully said. And what you said about inclusion, it also makes so much sense. Because we are who we are, but almost nothing that happens is personal. And of course, when you get hit, it's personal. But if another person is angry, most times he's not angry at you, but he's angry at what happens.
Yeah, right.
And it portrays it on you.
Yeah.
But it's his own frustration about whatever his gut brain on that moment is saying. And when you start thinking about those concepts, it makes life so much easier. And the same, Darwin is our guiding line of competition, and the strongest and the smartest survives. 50 years before Darwin, there was Lamarck, and he wrote, it's not about the struggle of the fittest, it's actually the struggle of adaptation. So you don't compete with others, you adapt yourself to your environment. You don't put energy in your competition, you put energy in yourself to create. Now, and if you look at that, then inclusion becomes also there. Because then you think, hey, we can include and we can put energy in ourselves instead of putting energy in other people to push them away. And it doesn't work, in my opinion.
And actually, I would echo that, because in working with organizations around change and with looking at the world in COVID, it's not about the fittest. It's about the most adaptable. And if you look at nature, if you can't adapt, you become irrelevant.
Yeah.
Full stop. And maybe as human beings, we'll be given a real chance right now to force ourselves to adapt to our environment. You mentioned, we're digitally hyper connected, but we're physically disconnected. And as we go back and get closer and closer to kind of seeing people again, moving to offices, I sense your line about safety. For me, you're really resonating with this concept of, for leaders trying to create the psychological safety for their people to come back into the offices. This model would be great, because if I say to somebody, hey, put your fingers on your head and say, I'm going into my office tomorrow, what does this brain think? Put it here, what does that brain think? And put it down at your gut, what does that brain think? Maybe we can start to help people build their psychological safety.
Absolutely. And you also create a discussion, what should we do to have that actually solution? Because logically we understand that only 0.5% dies from it. And more than half of it is above 85 who dies. Now, I'm not that age, so I'm not in the... And so we all know it, but based on the communication, it's dangerous. In the old days, it was how many people die. Then now it's how many people are infected. And infection doesn't say that you're sick, because there's so many not symptomatic. But in Madrid, everybody's wearing. I saw yesterday evening at a walk late at night. Madrid is empty. One person walks in the street with a mask on. I think so. I know it's mandatory, but that person is walking all by herself with a mask. So somewhere on a deep level, she is also convinced that she could get it just by breathing in, breathing out, walking in the street. Now, what kind of psychological effect does it have? That means breathing in, breathing out is dangerous. Yeah. And that's the only thing we have to do on a constant basis if you like to survive.
Right. But I was on a workshop, my first workshop in-house 2 weeks ago, and we had 8 people in the room, 2-day leadership, long-range planning, sort of strategy kind of event. We all started there in masks when we were coming together. People are wearing masks, some wearing gloves. But when you walked out of that room and you walked around the campus, there were some people you could see, they were like a little bit on their own, masked up. Just when someone was walking towards them, they'd like move out the way, let them come past, turn their back. We become this suspicious society, which is obviously psychologically is not great. But Chris, I want to turn it back just a little bit for one last question, if I could.
Of course.
When you're talking to leaders about this, how would you summarize the benefit of adopting this approach? Like, if you could crystallize the real benefits, what's it about?
The real benefits for me, if I talk to leaders, is about one, decision making. And that's decision making, what we decide in a way that you don't regret your decision because you made them in or in ratio or in emotion.
Right.
That's that stepping down. Hey, what do they think? The second one is connecting with people, and that's really, do you connect? Because in the old days when we went to office, we said, "Hey, good morning, how are you doing?" And if somebody said not good, then you thought, "Oh shit."
Yeah, right. Do I need to spend some time listening?
But it's a different way how you connect and build a team. And the third one is also in communication. How do you create, say, let's call it assertiveness, in people to dare to speak out? Because a lot of people don't dare to speak out. I still remember we did once the training in crucial conversations.
Yeah, right.
And it is about speaking out. You can do a crucial conversation, but if you don't dare to speak out based on your heart that is afraid for the relationship or your gut that's afraid for your personal position, you don't speak out, even if you know all the tricks and tools.
Right. Yeah.
Using that, say, in your team to create a trust in there that they dare to speak out, then you can also help them to do that. And I don't have to explain you, if people in the team dare to speak out, you create really a team. Yeah. And those three things for leaders would make, in my opinion, when I once read the book From Good to Great from the Gallup organization, then you really go to great. Because then you utilize all your team members. And I don't have to explain you in sports before we go back. Barcelona was 2 points ahead before the Corona crisis. And we're still in challenge for having the Champions League. At the end of the game, Real Madrid is number one. They were kicked out with an 8-2 defeat in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And they're totally messed up now. And it's not because they changed the team. No, actually, the team players didn't change the players. The team dynamics changed.
For sure. Yeah, you see it. I mean, sport is a great reflection and mirror on life.
So when you put that, say, in the business world, you can have the same players and you can be or going for number one in the league, or you can be defeated in all places. It doesn't mean that you need to change the players. You have to change actually the dynamics. Now, those three topics, decision making, connecting with people, and assertiveness, daring to speak out, creates that whole thing now. And besides the collateral beauty, I will say, of inclusion, that men and women are actually the same. Only we are biologically a bit different, but for the rest, we're totally the same.
I think that's great. And I'm reminded of why we connected so beautifully around sport when we first met. I feel as though we should do a podcast of our top 10 goals. Because your football knowledge is great in what you can recall. Chris, listen, this has been brilliant. My sense at the end of this conversation, one is uplifting, so I'll trust all the listeners will feel the same. But actually, I think we should get back together again in like 6 weeks' time when we've moved through the autumn and Europe is, the landscape keeps changing. And let's see if we can bring the three brains to another level where we start thinking about some more of the ways it can really help people move forward during these, at best, challenging times and at worst, quite scary times.
Yeah.
Christoffel Sneijders, that was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
That was brilliant. Chris, take care. We'll see you soon.
Yes.